Hi guys. Okay, so we want to look a little bit first about intercepts and then also about another form of the equation of the line. So the first thing to remember is that an intercept is the point where the curve crosses the x or the y-axis. So an x-intercept is where the line crosses, or any graph crosses the x-axis, and a y-intercept is the place where a graph crosses the y-axis. Now, to find the value of a y-intercept, you let y equals 0 and solve for x. So an x-intercept, when you cross the x-axis, the y value is 0. Likewise, when you're finding the y-intercept, the x value is 0. So you let x be 0 and you solve for y. So one way to do that, let's look at an example. We have 4x minus 3y equals 12. So if we want to find the y-intercept is the value of y when x is 0. So I cover up the x part. And all that's left is 3y equals 12. Okay, so now if I solve that mini equation, I divide both sides by -3, and 12 would be -4. So -4 would be my y-intercept. Now, if I want my x-intercept, the x-intercept is the value of x when y is 0. So I cover up the y term, right? Because -3 times 0 is 0. So that whole term goes away. Now we have 4x equals 12. Well, 4 times what is 12? Oh, 4 times 3 is 12. So we'll put a 3 in there, and that's my y-intercept. Now, why is it so important to know that? Well, I know most of you are used to taking this equation and you do all the algebra to put it in y equals form, so you can use your old favorite form of the equation of a line, y equals mx plus b, and then you could graph it. But now I want you to plot your y-intercept at -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then our x-intercept at 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then we get our handy dandy straight edge here, and we connect our two dots, and lo and behold, we have the graph of the line with minimal algebra. How cool was that? All right, let's try another one. Let's try 5x plus 2y equals 10. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for, let's do the x-intercept. So the x-intercept is the value of x when y is 0. So I'm going to cover up the y part, and we're going to say, okay, my x-intercept then, that's the value of x when y is 0. So if 5x equals 10, that means that 5 times 2 is 10. So on my x-axis, I cross at 2. Now I want to find my y-intercept. So my y-intercept is the value of y when x is 0. So I cover up the first part of the equation. Now I'm ready to solve for my y-intercept. So my y-intercept would be, if 2y equals 10, divide by 2, my y is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I put the dot. Go get my handy dandy straight edge again. That did not lay straight. Okay, so we got my handy dandy straight edge. We connect our dots. Little arrows on the ends. Please don't forget those arrows. And now you have the graph. Perfect. Okay. Let's look at what comes next. Now, the general form of the equation of a line is ax plus by plus c equals 0. Now, that is a true statement, but I want you to realize a couple of things here. One of the things is that in order for this to be true, a, b, and c are integers. That means there's no fractions or decimals. Okay, I'm going to shrink that a little bit so it fits on the screen for you a little better. Okay. Now, It is not necessary to memorize how to find the slope from the equation, what the slope formula is. It is possible to do it. For instance, if we solved ax plus by plus c equals 0 for y, the first thing we would do, put my pen on, the first thing we would do is we would subtract the ax and subtract the c. Then we would divide both sides by b. So we have negative a over b times x minus c over b. Okay? That means since it's now in slope-intercept form, our slope is negative a over b. You can choose to memorize this, but I don't know about you. I hate memorizing things. I find it easier just to, not even to necessarily have to do the algebra, but to think about doing the algebra. And we'll go through an example on that. But there's no need to memorize it, but some people like to memorize things. I'm going to be honest here. I told you that the general form of the equation of a line is ax plus by plus c equals 0. And that is the form that we use. Some professors and some textbooks will tell you that the general form is ax plus by equals, and it might be a c or it might be a k. It doesn't really make a difference. They're both the same. It really depends on your professor. It depends on your textbook. They are both been recognized as the general form of the equation of a line. Okay, so full disclosure, either one really is. We here in Farmingdale, in 4R, we use the first one that I showed you. Okay? All right, let's take a look at an example. 3x plus 2y minus 12 equals 0. And I want to find the slope. Now, I want to talk about what I was saying before. I don't want to have to memorize that slope is negative a over b. Okay, and I don't want to have to do all the algebra to put it in y equals mx plus b form. So I'm going to think about if I was going to do the algebra. Okay, I'm going to start with m. My y is over here on this side. I would have to move the 3x to the other side. So I would have to subtract 3x, but I'm not going to write the x. And then the next thing I would do is I would have to divide the 2. Notice I'm totally ignoring the negative 12 because it has nothing to do with finding my slope. So my slope is negative 3/2. Notice that is also negative a, which is negative 3, over b, which is 2. So it does also fit that rule. I will also do it algebraically in a moment. I'll come back to that. Okay, but I want to remember also the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is the value of y when x is 0. So we cover this up and we say, okay, 2y minus 12 equals 0. Well, that means that 2y equals 12. So 2 times 6 would be my y-intercept. So I can put my y-intercept here at 6 because I can see that I'm going to have to graph in part D. Now, you can start at 6 and then use your slope, which is rise over run right. But since it's a negative 3, you would go down 3 and then run right 2. Okay? So you can use your slope if you want. Or, since we have to find the x-intercept anyway, I can't grab my box, doesn't want to come. Uh-oh. Okay, got my box. All right, so now if I'm doing the x-intercept, that's the value of x when y is 0. So I cover that piece up. 3x minus 12 equals 0. So 3 times what minus 12 is 0. So it would have to be 12 minus 12. So 3 times 4 would give us 12. We do the 4 on the x-axis. We get that handy-dandy straight edge. Little bit arrows, and we have our graph. Now, just in case you don't believe me or you're just not happy with that method, it is absolutely okay if you choose to come over here and say, okay, I gotta get my pen on. If you choose to come over here and say, okay, 3x plus 2y minus 12 equals 0. I'm going to add the 12 to both sides. I'm going to subtract the 3x from both sides. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And you have to divide everything by 2. And then we divide both sides by 2. And you have to divide every single part by 2. So that'll give you y equals negative 3/2 x plus 6. Now you can see that your slope is negative 3 over 2. Your y-intercept is 6. And you could graph it from there too. You would still have to figure out your x-intercept by knowing that when y is 0, you can find the x value. Okay, guys? So remember, x-intercept is the value of x when y is 0. The y-intercept is the value of y when x is 0. All right, guys. See you in class. Bye.